IRC, which has been around really unchanged since God knows, the 80s probably. Doug, you know IRC?
I think 80s.
Yeah. Somehow we still use it at work. But anyways, yeah, it's a really old chat program, but you have multiple users and you can organize things. Choose your target. Download this terrible low orbit ion cannon denial of service job software, and then you organize your protests over IRC. Remarkably, people are still doing it. And then of course, this all generalizes, and what you're seeing today is that a lot of these technologies, Anonymous, Occupy, all Twitter, it's also building on top of each other, and you're seeing a real generalization of global protest movements using these technologies. And when you start looking at the arrests, it's just a bunch of white people. That's really not true. A lot of the Anon arrests are actually arrests in the Dominican Republic. They're exceedingly active in Turkey, active in places. It's amazing how widespread that sort of hacktivist meme has gotten. And also, we discovered that there are problems now with these technologies in 2011, and a lot of these come out of mass surveillance. So Snowden, sort of in WikiLeaks 2.0, reveals the NSA mass surveillance, that the internet is actually watching all of us, or not watching actively, it's copying a whole lot of data. And so I think we have a number of challenges that these technologies have to fix. So what was the main problem with text mob? The main problem with text mob was it was a terrible user interface, hard to sign up, and not many people had smartphones. Right? And now those problems are all solved, and everyone's on Twitter. So the question is, looking to the future, what is it, what's the challenges facing getting all of this software like Tor hidden services and multi-user chat, how do you get this all working in a way that you can have Twitter-like effects for the next round of struggle? And I think the first big challenge is anonymity online is not solved. Tor is probably the best we have. Why did most Anons go to jail? Because they weren't using Tor, because it was kind of slow. You just have to admit it. They were using VPNs. A lot of people are using Hide My Ass VPN. VPN is, only hides you kind of one hop, so the VPN knows who you are. Maybe you go to on the other side of the VPN doesn't know who you are. So of course, when the FBI goes to the VPN, they say, give us this data. They hand over the data, and that sends people, like a lot of people in the PayPal 14 case, to jail. The second case is, what's happened is now in Egypt, the revolution's gone to a very dark phase. Muslim Brotherhood overthrown by the military, and the military is actually going through social media to find people, activists from the Tigray revolts, and put them in jail. So when I was in Egypt, I said, this is crazy, you guys are just totally public. Like, yes, we have to be totally public. That's how the revolt will spread, and that did work. At the same point, now that we've entered a counter-revolutionary period, the government's going through their old Twitter feeds and discovering stuff like, hey, this guy called Sambo who took a gun from the Egyptian police at some protest, photographed with it. He was arrested, put in jail. He's still in jail, I believe. And of course, this photo, people still like him, but it's tough, right? He got caught because of posting photos on social media. And then you're seeing a lot of mapping going on. So you can actually use Facebook and Twitter to map the social media. This is Arabic speaking, this is English speaking, to basically map the major players, the people who really spread the revolt, and then the government's now arresting these people. It's really terrible. It's quite funny if you look at this sometimes. You see Jared Cohen's State Department's way over there, some kind of, this girl, her English is very bad, Zenobia, but she's really active, she's in the middle, and you see, it's really interesting. People who you would not expect it as being incredibly influential, that's going into Google down there in the revolution, and then the government's now going back and using this to identify and arrest people. So you have to somehow, how is it you can get something like Twitter and Facebook that doesn't reveal your identity, that doesn't put you in jail if things go wrong? Another problem, and we'll just watch another little quick video. Maybe we don't have time. We don't have time. We'll do it later. Maybe we'll just watch the end. So people think, well, the problem with Bitcoin, which is only now been noticed, is that it's not really anonymous, right? So Bitcoin, by definition, is a sort of is effectively a technology which keeps a record of everyone's transactions, and everyone has a record of all those transactions. So it doesn't have your name on it; it's just pseudonymous.
You thought you'd act differently.
So this is, so now people work on evolving Bitcoin and trying to make it anonymous. These are just kind of hackers, but eventually something like this might work.
And it's time to make a choice. At its end of empire. The United States imagines the power to regulate the world's first great digital currency, Bitcoin.
It's a cyber currency, so how do we get to it?
To provide a framework for its existence. A technology that questions all previous frameworks, fitted for its straitjacket. Helping the United States is a group of lobbyists and corporations calling themselves the Foundation. The mission is a performance, to both agree with and maintain an independence from regulatory power. But you can't have it both ways. OnSystem is an international group of activist developers led by Miyazaki. Concerned by the Foundation's centralized development and advocacy, they're developing a crypto wallet that runs on a completely independent software stack. This wallet runs on the back-end Bitcoin, the command tools SX, and the Obelisk blockchain server architecture. A thin wallet, the premier version of which will include privacy and security features, trustless mixing, and the foundation of a distributed identity protocol. Help us cover the next 4 months of full-time development. Help us make this implementation a license.
But you can see there's a lot of activity going on about how do we actually make Bitcoin and these sort of things actually anonymous. And it's very interesting. And a lot of very young people are very excited.
Now we are all being intercepted permanently. This is a state change.
My personal bank account was shut down. My blacklisted from having
gotta
a personal
pause.
bank account. It doesn't matter, I don't use Bitcoin. And now we're hearing stories of people's personal accounts being
why are
blocked
they so
because
dangerous?
they said they were comfortable operating in that environment because they felt that they enjoyed complete anonymity.
Are you watching? Are you listening? Bitcoin is what they fear it is. A way to lead. To forbid. To make a choice. There's a system approaching perfection. Just in time for our disappearance. So, let there be dark.
There's a lot of activity going on in this space.
Wait, you gotta hit cancel. Go ahead. I think it's gonna play another video.
Darkwall, I wouldn't recommend it right now. They're doing really smart stuff, but it's not quite ready for. I wouldn't buy drugs right now. But regardless, that's what it looks like.
You have to hit cancel,
at
remember?
all about this technology?
Well, we're doing this project and using this technology as a form of resistance. So it's just a...
As we were saying. Yeah, so you can see that there's a lot of interest in how do we do tools, and there's a lot of other, not only just fixing the anonymity in Bitcoin, but also looking at, this is Crabgrass from RiseUp. We have a lot of tools, Lumio, Democracy OS, decent, and the W3C actually standardized some of the stuff. How do we make a lot of the problems you had? I remember in Occupy trying to see people vote over Twitter, which is totally crazy. Reach consensus using Twitter into large meetings with hundreds, thousands of people. But that's a real problem. If you're actually going to try to run a society, I think this is one of the limit points that I hear and Occupy. You need really good tools if you want to do it in a way that's actually participatory for lots of people. So there's tons of work going on various code bases trying to figure out how can we make decisions online collectively. Still very new, but it could be very interesting. Some of it uses, like Ethereum is using Bitcoin technology. Eris is probably the most stable branch. Other bits are using more traditional web apps like Crabgrass. But regardless, it's exceedingly, this space is probably going to develop really fast over the next few years. And, the real problem, which we don't quite have solved yet, is how to do multi-chat, how to have multiple people from like an IRC room and keep all those chat messages encrypted so they can't be read by people who aren't in the chat. And even, which is even a harder problem, how to keep those people anonymous, at least from the outside observers. Someone who's watching all the traffic, going in and out of the chat room, such as the NSA. The best we have right now, which you can download and use, I highly recommend, is TextSecure. by an anarchist called Moxie Marlin Spike, who I think you guys may, has he come yet? He should be coming. I think you guys
We're working on it.
So to speak.
Yeah.
Get Moxie, he's great. This is I recommend everyone uses software. You can actually, there's a little lock, your message is encrypted. It's probably the best multi-user encryption software out there. I think Moxie's now on contract with WhatsApp to fix their encryption. There's a lot of other stuff. We don't really have encrypted email, anonymous email working yet. So there's a lot of non-email protocols. Perio by Nadeem is quite interesting. It's brand new. I've only played with it a little bit. There is, if you want to use a VPN that's not high bias, I recommend the one from the folks at RiseUp, which is a bitmask.net. If you have an Android or Mac or Linux, you can just download it and use it. And it keeps, unlike a normal VPN, it auto reconfigures, reboots into secure mode, so if you lose Wi-Fi, you can restart the VPN manually, it restarts. And eventually, they're putting encrypting private public key material in there and help you use that to bootstrap an encrypted messaging system. And eventually, an alternative to Gmail. So I would say that the stakes are very high. If we do not figure out how to do things like encryption and anonymity and security properly over the next few years. So there's probably, as you know, right now it seems like we're in a lull as regards social movements, but we're probably on another giant round at some point. The fundamental political and economic conditions haven't really changed since 2011. If anything, more and more smartphones, more and more internet technology is going to more and more countries which are having larger economic problems. Sub-Saharan Africa is actually very interesting right now. China is still very interesting. And if we don't get this technology working, as the regimes themselves, Russia is a good case here, China is a very good case, the United States is a very good case, are becoming incredibly sophisticated in terms of surveillance and tracking down people, that it's up to the activists who are trying to embed these rights to privacy, rights to anonymity, rights to access to uncensored internet into the software. It's important to get that right and have that in the hands of people before the next uprising happens. And I think we are not yet at that point. I would not use Bitcoin to buy drugs. It's really not anonymous at all. TechSecure is the best we have, but it only works with other people who have TechSecure.
WebRTC?
WebRTC now exposes your IP address to JavaScript players. Actually, terrible. We're trying to fix that now. But yes, eventually we can get peer-to-peer browsers talking to each other. That would be great once we hash through into W3C some of our security and privacy issues there. And a lot of these tools are self-organization. Right now we're all using Facebook. What if Facebook killed your webpage or it shut down? How would you know where the next uncontrollables event is happening? And these are all rapidly becoming realities across the world. And I think I'd just like to return to the final point, which is, there's a lot of, I would say, fairly negative, post the NSA surveillance revelations. It's very easy to sort of say, hey, the internet is just this giant mass surveillance device, which to some extent the NSA plus Silicon Valley have indeed made that the case. But that was not its original purpose. Douglas Engelbart, who ran the second node on the net and had a lot of concepts on the web that Tim took, such as the URLs-ish sort of things, hypertext, his vision was always that he sort of said, well, why do we need the internet? And he was saying this in the 1950s. He said, well, look, the problems that we're facing as the human species are so big, and they're effectively global, that we cannot solve them individually. We're having trouble solving them even in small groups. A global communication mechanism will be necessary to, as he called it, bootstrap our collective IQ. And a lot of, I think, that spirit from these researchers did go into the internet and web. And I think to some extent, while we do, it's not a simple black or white, is the internet good, is it bad, does it even exist? Of course it exists. We have a network, we have global communication, low latency for the first time in human history. And it's increasing in reach throughout the entire globe. And the question is not to make a moral judgment on it, but the question is, what are the concrete problems that are being encountered by people, and in particular social movements, that we can then create tools and help use tools and refine tools to solve? And if we can solve some of these problems, then maybe we have a fighting chance against the global scale problems like climate change and economic crisis that we're currently facing. And some of that thinking was even in the air in the 1950s. So that's it. Sorry that went a little bit long, and a few questions, and then we can go. You can leave at any time, by the way. It's like 7 on Friday, so you're all thanked. Okay, what's up then?
Well, somebody else should have the chance to speak first, but I have a question.
Go for it. You can go.
Okay. So you talked about how social media has been a really good way of starting revolutions. Has it been a good one at finishing them? Is the question. There's a assistant professor in information library science here at UNC named, I'm going to butcher this name. Her name is Zeynep Tufekci. Yeah, you know her. Okay. She gave a TED talk in which she talked about how older revolution models, for example, the civil rights movement, had better long-term effects than modern internet-based ones, because, in part, or at least her thesis is in part, because it took a long time to get people. It took a long time to disseminate information, but it also built stronger bonds between individuals. There was more unity between the individuals. There was more time to normalize the expectations, and there was more time, and there was more effectively, I guess, emotional commitment to the cause. Whereas the speed with which these revolutions are being started through social media can't sustain over the long. Doesn't seem to sustain over the long term. And you look at Egypt. Look at everything that has started. They've all failed, right? I mean, I'm not trying to be negative.
Tunisia's not that bad, but yeah.
Okay, Tunisia is actually a great counterexample. That's true. But so how do you? Hey, listen, I like technology, okay, but is there some? What's the role of technology in maintaining it, in really truly maintaining that sort of revolutionary / evolutionary progression of social ability, social control?
So again, I mean, I would say look at, so UNL had the same critique. So Henry Kissinger says the exact same thing. He's quoted in Google. He's like, the social media, it's great for starting revolutions, but need strong leadership, finish them. And they're not generating strong leaders, only governments can generate strong leaders that can then finish political tasks.
Me and Henry Kissinger like this.
Oh, maybe he's in it. I don't know. And then I think it's a reasonable critique to say that, but you can also make the same critique of a lot of the early revolutions, right? So, things, you could say, the Paris Commune, they weren't really that organized, kind of messy, didn't really work out, happened too quickly. And I think, in general, and then how do we solve this problem? Can we build a centralized party, which can be Bolsheviks, didn't turn out that well. So I think, I sort of think that the solution is not saying, hey, social media just starts revolts really quickly, but there's no long-term commitment, and therefore they're all destined to flicker out. That's actually technological determinism. You're saying this technology, Morozov makes a similar argument, is destined to be used by centralized authoritarian powers against the protesters to crush them, or somehow it has some sort of negative psychological effect